Few franchises blur reality and fantasy as successfully as Transformers. Here's what these behemoths of special effects look like without all the digital wizardry.
Autobots, roll out!
Big, complicated transforming robots seem a little common today. There are 7 feature Transformers films now, and countless technological imitators. But when 2007's Transformers hit the big screen, both the scale and intricacy of the robot effects was something audiences hadn't really seen before. While the original cartoons had the robots looking fairly simple, director Michael Bay has always endeavored to make them more. Each has hundreds or thousands of complex moving parts, and effects designers have gone to excruciating lengths to make every part of each robot move and transform in a way that would work in the real world. That takes testing and retesting. For example, if you look at the Transformers highway battle before the CGI has been fully rendered, you can see how many steps it actually took to bring everything to life. An incomplete render of the robots helps designers perfect the scene without having to do 100% of the work for each attempt. This step allows them to rehearse a scene over and over to see what works and what doesn't. They can choreograph the fight, adjust movements, or even entire elements, and study the angles to get proper lighting and reflections. This all helps to make sure they're interacting believably with the surrounding photography, as well as on-set props, actors, and vehicles. The second film in the saga, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, introduced several new ideas to the series, including the bold decision to film it without a script.
We were given a date, we were given a bunch of money, we were given a bunch of toys, and we had no script.
The movie also introduced a Decepticon known as a Pretender, which disguises itself by taking the form of a young woman named Alice. While in Sam's dorm, Alice reveals her true nature, with her face opening up to reveal robot parts before her entire body transforms. There were 2 different effects in this scene. The robotic tongue that wraps around Sam's neck was a mix of CGI and a physical prop. For the digital effects, actress Isabel Lucas first had to be filmed acting out all of the Pretender's movements, both before and after she transformed. With this to work with, artists at Digital Domain were able to overlay CGI depicting the Pretender's robot elements, erasing parts of Lucas's body as needed, until nothing was left. It begins with cracks appearing across her face before she opens her mouth to reveal a robot, and more parts of her head expand and open as her true self emerges. It's a combination of multiple layers of CGI, and it all combines to create a convincing monstrosity. Acting opposite digital characters takes a lot of imagination, something Megan Fox had to contend with when making Revenge of the Fallen. That film added a pair of pint-sized Decepticons named Wheelie and Brains, and in one pivotal scene, her character Michaela is able to capture one of them. After catching Wheelie lurking, she grabs hold of the Decepticon with a pair of tongs, who struggles and squirms in her grasp. This time, though, the actress had no replica to work with. What this meant was that in the raw footage, Fox was battling pretty much nothing. She just shakes a blue object in her tongs and acts like she's struggling. It may look silly on its own, but when the CGI artists add in Wheelie, it all comes together. In filmmaking, the art of special effects has come a long way since the early days. Storyboards were and still remain one of the most useful tools for planning a scene, with scene sketches to show how the camera should be positioned and how the action flows. But thanks to CGI, digital sequences called animatics can be created, as crude versions of the final scene in its entirety using quick 3D mock-ups of the environment and characters. This pre-visualization, or previs, has become a critical component in making CGI-heavy movies like Transformers. To plan the forest scene in Revenge of the Fallen, for example, an early render of Optimus Prime was quickly assembled to give filmmakers an idea of what the scene might look like. It allows them to set up the camera and move it through the scene, while the characters play out their parts. The entire sequence involved a highly choreographed fight scene between multiple Transformers, and this previs allowed Michael Bay to get precise movements planned out well in advance. Previs is an awesome tool, but to bring a scene to life, you need to put it in the real world. Background photography is one of the most important steps for Michael Bay when putting together the most exciting shots of the Transformers films. Having those real backgrounds helps sell the scene. And for Revenge of the Fallen, that forest battle between Optimus Prime and Megatron in the forest was one of the most complex to get right. That meant lots of pre-planning, which allowed Bay and his team to plan ahead to get what they needed on location. According to a behind-the-scenes featurette, this sequence was pretty dang tricky to create. As described by VFX specialists, Michael Bay wanted an incredibly kinetic battle happening in this scene, which meant changing the way the robots moved and fought.
Some of this feels a little stylized because we had referenced a lot of anime fight sequences when we started out.
But as massive robots the size of small buildings, every move they make would kick up dirt or knock down trees. An initial pass would capture what boiled down to an invisible battle tearing up the landscape. Later, the Transformers were added in, timed to the movements, smoke, and dirt that was staged during the shooting. With so many CGI characters in the Transformers movies, it can often be a struggle to convince the audience that the human characters are side by side with their robot counterparts.
Come to daddy.
To create this illusion, filmmakers use many different methods while shooting scenes that involve both humans and robots. Sometimes it's a fully constructed robot replica, or a piece of them at least, which allows actors to physically interact with a real object. Other times, there's simply nothing there at all. For at least one scene in Revenge of the Fallen, a production assistant simply held up a cardboard cutout of the head of the robot character. This is typically used for scenes that don't require direct interaction, but it gives the actors a reference point to make a consistent eyeline. Without it, actors like Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox could be looking all over the place, never quite sure of where Bumblebee's face was. With something as simple as a cardboard head on a stick, they can give believable responses to a character that isn't there. When it comes to stand-ins for Transformer characters, sometimes a cardboard head on a stick just isn't enough. For the making of Revenge of the Fallen, a scene required Shia LaBeouf to get up on top of Optimus Prime's body to stab him with the Matrix. The filmmaker could have simply had him stand on a platform, or even just use clever camera angles to make it seem like he was standing on Prime's body. But production created a crude full-size stand-in for Optimus Prime. Is it really a Michael Bay movie without at least one scene of devastating roadway mayhem? We don't know. Michael Bay never gives us a chance to find out.
I'm never going to be doing another highway chase again.
All right, let's go try one, shall we?
The Transformers series obviously relies on CGI more than most movies, but you might be surprised to learn how much of the action in the Transformers movies was created on set. From flipping cars and exploding buildings to even some of the robots themselves. In one sequence in Transformers Dark of the Moon, Decepticons and Autobots chase each other down a busy highway. And as they race down the road, chaos unfolds. While the Transformers themselves are entirely CGI and added in later, behind-the-scenes footage shows a massive blue-painted truck with a plow being used as a stand-in to physically smash through cars. Eventually, the truck was digitally erased and replaced with the Transformers. Additional CGI elements like debris, smoke, and bigger flames add further excitement to the sequence. Transformers Dark of the Moon one-ups the previous two films in many ways, particularly in terms of pure spectacle. The Decepticons lead an all-out attack on the city of Chicago, which sends entire skyscrapers tumbling to the street below. One of the key settings during the battle to take back the city is inside a skyscraper, leading at a precarious angle. The wide exterior shots were a digital creation, but going pure digital or filming inside a real skyscraper and using visual trickery for all of the action going on inside wasn't good enough. Instead, Bay had a team construct an entire floor of an office building on a moving gimbal that could tilt the entire thing back and forth.
That platform is 1/3 of a football field.
The gimbal is a large apparatus that can swing to and fro, allowing Bay to adjust the exact angle he wanted to send the actors sliding down the rig. Gimbals are common enough in films. It's how some of the gravity shift effects in Inception were achieved for one, but rarely, if ever, has one been used for an entire office building floor. In behind-the-scenes footage from the movie, you really get a sense of just how big this set is as the crew sets it up for different scenes. And it was more than just an interior set. When the team jumps out the windows on the top side of the leaning structure, they end up in an uncontrolled slide down the windows. Again, this sequence was done without the use of CGI. Well, without too much CGI. But making it happen was surprisingly simple. They just did it for real. Using the same gimbaled platform, production placed real glass panes on the outside and waxed them to a slippery finish, and sent the actors down as fast as they could go.
This 110-foot glass slide, he had them sprinkle baby powder on their rear ends so that they would scoot down even faster.
There are several options filmmakers can use to create an otherworldly landscape in a sci-fi film. They can shoot in a real location and place their CGI Transformers in the scene in post-production, or they can create the entire environment with computer-generated imagery. The third option is a hybrid of the two, and involves large sets or locations where digital imagery is used to alter the real landscapes. To create the interior of Lockdown's ship in Age of Extinction, a massive interior was constructed on an indoor soundstage, complete with smoke machines, fireballs, and lighting to create the overall mood. With this real-life starting point, the FX team at Industrial Light and Magic could start working their Industrial Light and Magic. Beyond the physically constructed set pieces, green screen walls gave the team visual indicators they could use to turn the set into a sprawling starship interior, hundreds and hundreds of feet long and populated by enormous alien robots. Part of the genius of the physical design was that since it is supposed to be a somewhat militarized alien spaceship, they were able to build modular pieces that could be moved around to create different sections of the ship while maintaining the same texture and feel throughout. The impressive combination of both real and digital artistry put into this set definitely stands out, even in a franchise filled with such things.
We're behind enemy lines now. Lockdown ship has booby traps.
It's not uncommon for a director to make a cameo in their movie, whether it's Peter Jackson belching at the camera in Lord of the Rings or Alfred Hitchcock appearing in, well, most of his movies. Spotting these little Easter eggs is a lot of fun for fans. And in Age of Extinction, Michael Bay got a tiny cameo thanks to a little visual effects wizardry. The moment comes during a battle between Autobots and Decepticons on the open road. And when Optimus Prime goes flying through the back of a truck, eagle-eyed viewers can spot Bay as a panicked passenger.
Genius.
No, Bay wasn't riding in that truck while it got blasted to smithereens. His footage was filmed in front of a green screen and composited into the main shot in the editing room. It's a tough cameo to spot, but it's one of those things that once you notice it, can't be unseen. The Transformers movies obviously take a lot of pride in using as much practical photography as possible. Michael Bay will film real roads, cars, and buildings, and even have the landscape smashed up and destroyed to help ground all the CGI that gets added later. Because it's one thing to animate a realistic CGI robot, but if it's not interacting with the environment in a relatively normal way, it's hard to suspend your disbelief. But not all structures and vehicles are real in the frame. It's usually a mix of the two, with CGI used to give on-set elements a different look. Few set pieces showcase that better than the wide-scale destruction during the climax of Age of Extinction. Throughout the sequence, Lockdown's big magnet is constantly raining objects down onto the city below. And much of that carnage was indeed captured by hoisting vehicles into the air on wires and then dropping them.
I just like moving big things very close to the camera, but keep it real.
But a behind-the-scenes glimpse from Industrial Light and Magic shows how much work was done in post-production. The ship itself is obviously a digital creation, as are the seacraft falling onto the road. Even the car ferrying the characters out of danger is digital in this shot. Later, an entirely different background of the city was added behind the action, and several large pieces of infrastructure were removed from the frame. The end result is a near seamless mix of real-life destruction and impossible alien machines that will make you shout, "Oh my God!" Some directors are happy to sit behind the camera, call action, and cut. Michael Bay, however, is not that kind of director. He's always in the middle of the action, and never afraid to roll up his sleeves and get his hands a little dirty.
My director would kill a man for fun.
Look at any behind-the-scenes footage from any of the Transformers movies, and it's clear how involved Bay is in every aspect of filming. Whether he's personally manipulating Shia LaBeouf's face to mimic a robot, or menacing Nicola Peltz with a green robot claw, it's clearly tough to get actors to convincingly react to robots that aren't there. But Bay is always up to the challenge. While the movies may have their faults, it's hard not to appreciate Bay's devotion to nailing every single shot of his Transformers films. Due to Michael Bay's propensity for shooting real elements, there's a certain grittiness to the Transformers movies. With so much CGI, the use of real backgrounds helps ground the scene in ways CGI extensions can't always achieve. And although Bay bowed out of directing the spin-off movie Bumblebee, a lot of those same techniques were still used to bring the film to life. To film Bumblebee stumbling through a smoldering set, for example, director Travis Knight got as much of the scene in camera as possible. The baseline fires and wreckage are all real, although multiple extra layers were then added to build up the atmosphere. Assembled in post-production, it shows how a few little changes to a scene can help sell the illusion of reality, demonstrating the true magic of special effects. Sometimes all you need is a light to touch to bring a single scene to life. On the flip side of that, some scenes like the action on Cybertron were completely digital. Though it's true that the Transformers are created entirely on a computer, that doesn't mean they weren't actually there on set at all. While what we see on screen is indeed CGI, full-scale physical models of some robot characters were created for some scenes. More than just a simple prop, the head, shoulders, and torso of Bumblebee were built at full scale and used around the set for a variety of purposes. A stand-in like this can prove useful for setting up camera angles, lighting, and staging scenes. But it's also crucial for the actors' performances. With a physical representation of Bumblebee there, cast members like Haley Steinfeld could have a real-life scene partner to interact with, providing not just an eyeline, but a physical body that she can see, touch, and act opposite allows for a sense of realness and believability that is otherwise difficult to achieve. Often when discussing the behind-the-scenes efforts to create the elaborate effects works on movies like Bumblebee, you'll hear how a physical element was removed and replaced with a CGI creation. But it's not as simple a process as that makes it sound. It takes a number of distinct steps and hours of painstaking digital artistry just to set up, and even more intense work to get just right.
Are you scared?
For this scene in which Charlie is standing over Bumblebee in a forest, we can see 3 of those distinct setups. For an over-the-shoulder shot, Steinfeld was looking at a sheet of green screen fabric lying on the ground. From there, the digital animators could build out a rough model of Bumblebee that's ultimately replaced by the full digital render. For the wide shots, the handy Bumbletop came into play again, and was again erased to bring the digital Bumblebee to life. Set extensions are a key component to making movies these days, as digital effects can turn any real-life location into something it's not.
Impossible.
It's a common tool, even in movies where you wouldn't expect to see a lot of VFX. Sometimes sets can be extended without the help of blue or green screens, but those tools certainly make the work easier. And often this means constructing massive walls of blue or green fabric to help special effects teams to mask out the backgrounds and work their magic. That technique was used in Transformers: Rise of the Beast to build up the exterior of the museum set. Set in 1994, Rise of the Beast is a prequel to the earlier films and shows Optimus Prime in his classic Mack truck form. In one of the key action scenes, he arrives at a museum at the start of an all-out robo-brawl between the Autobots and the Terracons. As he enters the shot, we can see the museum in the background, and a large blue structure atop it and behind it. For the battle outside the museum, the lowest level of the museum was physically built, while a massive blue screen wall stood in on set for the upper levels of the structure. MPC was one of the VFX companies responsible for digitally finishing the set, not to mention the robots fighting in it. In the final film, the museum is much different, which no doubt made it a lot easier to progressively destroy throughout the fight. Part of the magic of editing is the ability to shoot scenes on different sets, sometimes even different countries, and weave them together so it looks like the action is all happening in one place. While the Autobots and Terracons are duking it out outside the museum in Rise of the Beast, Noah and museum intern Eleanor are dealing with their own problems inside. Scourge uses a blaster to blow holes in the face of the museum, sending Noah and Eleanor running for cover while the room explodes around them. To film that scene, the interior of the museum was built and then blasted apart with pyrotechnics while cameras captured the action. The final scene is just seconds of screen time, but it's clear that plenty of time and effort was taken to create this single over-the-top moment. So, you want to put a high-stakes car chase in your movie? There are a couple ways that could happen. You could scout the perfect real-life location and shut down half a city to get the shots. You could go the route of The Matrix Reloaded and just build your own highway set. Or you can blend a real location with digital effects to get the best of both worlds. That's how production achieved a nail-biting police chase in Rise of the Beast, which sent Noah and Mirage careening through the streets of NYC and across the Williamsburg Bridge. The scene was filmed partly on real streets, but for the sections on the bridge, a little digital trickery came into play. Massive stretches of blue screen were erected on either side of a road to provide coverage and blocking for CGI artists to add in the bright lights and tall skyscrapers. Effects House MPC did the work of building in every digital layer for the scene, further integrating Mirage's unique transformations into the foreground. The final version of the shot in the film has Noah racing across a bridge with a panorama of the city skyline in the background. With as many diverse locations as we've seen across the Transformers movies, it can be a challenge for filmmakers to find new and original places to film. Over the years, the franchise has gone everywhere from rural Texas to the pyramids of Egypt and everywhere in between.
Where are we today? We're actually at Disney World, at the Egyptian part of the theme park. Come on!
But some scenes need specific conditions and characteristics that prove a bit too challenging to find in the real world. For those locations, producers usually opt to create them on a soundstage, and thanks to the magic of special effects, can make them feel even more real. The labyrinthine underground temple in Rise of the Beast was one set where a soundstage was utilized. The base of the set was built with blue screens added so animators could easily give the cave, well, more rocks. Okay, so maybe it's not the biggest CGI challenge we've seen in these films, but every little touch goes towards making the final product. And when it's all put together, it creates a fully believable, immersive location that audiences would never know was built inside an empty warehouse. Interactions on screen between humans and robots in Transformers movies can be tricky at the easiest of moments. At the toughest, it can seem downright impossible. The easiest way to get around that is to not just have your real and digital characters physically interact. But what if a scene describes a 30-foot-tall Optimus Prime lifting a teenager off the ground and holding him in midair?
Not cool.
To make it seem like Prime was holding Noah 10 feet off the ground, actor Anthony Ramos was strapped into an elaborate crane rig and suspended in the air while cameras filmed the action from various angles. Then digital animators added in Optimus in all his glory, and voila! You have the impossible made possible.